In the early hours of August 31st, 1997, a terrible accident happened in the Pont du Lama tunnel in Paris. The black Mercedes was severely damaged in a horrible accident, and its people needed to be rescued. One of the first people to arrive was French firefighter Xavier Goulemont, who had no idea what a huge task lay ahead. He saw that the blonde woman was still alive and moving her lips as he worked hard to pull her out of the wreckage. He knew it was Princess Diana when he heard her last weak words as he leaned closer. After hours, Goulemont was heartbroken to learn that she had died. He thought she might have lived. He has carried the weight of that moment for more than 30 years. Eventually, he told the painful truth about Princess Diana's last moments and the significant impact of her mythical life and unexpected death in recent years. The mistake. Goulemont and 9 other firemen rushed to the Pont du Lama underpass to help the people who had been hurt in the terrible accident. The front of the Mercedes-Benz W140 involved in the accident was destroyed. The guys peered inside and saw what looked like the body of a dead person. Goulemont looked around. He looked through the fancy bar for anyone else he could save. Then he looked inside and saw a young blonde woman. It looked like she was still breathing, though not very much. Step up to the plate. Goulemont was shocked to learn that the blonde had died in the hospital because she was in a pretty stable condition when he got her out of the car. When he cared for her, he didn't know who she was. All he cared about was making sure she made it through that significant time. His surprise grew even more prominent when he discovered that the girl he had saved was Diana, Princess of Wales. But there was more to the story than that. He helped her exit the car while she mumbled something to him. He kept these comments from her for 20 years. The path Diana was meant to take. Princess Diana Spencer grew up in a wealthy family and met the royal family when she was young. Since her family lived close to Sandringham House, she spent her early years with the upper-class people of the land. On the other hand, Spencer didn't do as well in school, but she finally made up for it by taking a few low-paying jobs in London. However, Diana was meant for a more meaningful life. When she was 16, her life took an interesting turn that would change her family's finances and her way of life forever. Ring the wedding bells. Diana stayed humble and shy as she got older, which made her look good. Charles, Prince of Wales, liked how classy she was. Charles was seeing Diana's older sister, Sarah, at the time, but rapidly became romantically interested in Diana. The wedding occurred at St. Paul's Cathedral on July 29, 1981, and was broadcast worldwide. About 750 million people worldwide watched the Prince of Wales and Diana say their vows at St. Paul's Cathedral. Unfortunately, this couple's happily ever after wasn't like the ones in fairy tales. Things that matter most. Diana had to follow strict rules and standards because she was a member of the British royal family. These rules and standards did not fit her quiet and modest personality. Diana thought getting married to a prince was the best thing to have happened to her, but things got hard quickly, especially when she found out she would have a baby. The main thing that made Diana feel empty inside was her opinion that she wasn't worthy of being a princess. Diana felt there needed to be more reporters and cameras following her around. They even took pictures of her and her family during times that were supposed to be private. She soon learned, though, that being in the spotlight would have other harmful effects on her life as the years went by. In secret, many people thought Prince Charles's family was perfect and happy. On the other hand, their marriage was falling apart and things were rough on the other side of the royal walls. Princess Diana was said to have had eating problems and emotional breakdowns. It was later found that she had also cheated on Charles. Diana had a hard time keeping up a happy public image. Still, most people agreed that Charles's very public and renewed romance with his ex-lover, Camilla Parker Bowles, done without Diana's feelings in mind, was the last straw in their marriage. The photographer shows how sad she is. After their beautiful wedding, the media followed them to record how happy they seemed in their new marriage. There was one picture that showed Diana's tears. The photographer, Lennox, has now told the real story of what happened in that terrible accident. The media made fun of the picture by calling it an answer to the roses people threw at her head. Lennox said decades later that he was told it was just heat and jet lag, even though he had said that Diana burst into tears and wept for a couple of minutes. He also said, "I don't think Charles has noticed Diana crying at that point. If he had, it would be typical for Prince Charles to turn a blind eye to something like that." It was the first of many. It was an open interview that made everyone jump. Diana reportedly told journalist Martin Bashir in 1995 that there were 3 of us in this marriage, referring to Charles's relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles. She was also honest about her problems with bulimia and sadness, focusing on how hard it was for her to get help. After this talk, things changed in her marriage to Charles, and the following year, they officially got a divorce. Many people felt sorry for Diana, but her boys, William and Harry, were said to be very angry with her for talking about the family's private problems in public. In various ways. Just over 10 years after their wedding of the century, Diana and Charles's marriage ended in 1996. Fans were heartbroken. Some said Diana was hurt more by the split than Prince Charles. A newspaper writer said Diana pulled away from public life because she said she didn't have many true friends. Diana's love life improved after she broke up with Charles. Outrageous things. There were rumors that the princess had many lovers when she was young and pretty. It was also said that while she was married, she had affairs with men like her bodyguard, Paul Menike, and cavalryman James Hewitt. Finally, it came out that she had to end her connection with car dealer and childhood friend, James Gilby, after their phone calls became public, and he called her squidgy. The story made the news. Behind closed doors. When British Pakistani heart surgeon Hasnat Khan came into the princess's life, it seemed like everything was back to normal. Their relationship stayed a closely guarded secret while Diana tried to find a way to escape the public eye. She told her friends that Khan was the most interesting person ever. When the princess first saw the surgeon, she was utterly enthralled. She was at London's Royal Brompton Hospital with a friend. Above my head. Vanity Fair also says that Khan and Diana's relationship grew to the point where they talked about getting married, even though Diana tried to get him to agree to a small wedding. Hasnat advised that they move to Pakistan so that the media wouldn't be able to get involved in their personal lives. He didn't like the attention that came with dating the most famous person in the world. Diana is said to have given the idea a lot of thought. Almost married. The princess is also said to have told her close friend and former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, how she felt about Hasnat. Khan later said that his talks with her made him believe she was in love with Hasnat. However, the relationship started to fall apart over time. Even after this new development, Diana kept working hard for the causes she believed in. Before she was on the cover of Vanity Fair in 1997, she went to the English National Ballet and visited Mother Teresa. Someone new. Diana said yes to Mohammed Al Fayed's offer to take a holiday in Saint-Tropez in the south of France that very month. They met for the first time at a polo match in July 1986, where Al Fayed played. Diana went to the billionaire's home with Princes William and Harry, who are her kids. Then there were reports that Diana was in love with Dodi, Al Fayed's son. Modern love stories. Even while they were on vacation in France, the media always watched the People's Princess and her family. Many still know the pictures on the newspaper's front page of her kissing Dodi on the Al Fayed family boat. After that, Diana told the reporters at an unplanned news meeting that she would surprise them with her next move. She had no idea what she said would be eerily accurate. Dr. Al Fayed Dodi. Dodi, the eldest son, grew up wealthy and became famous as a movie producer, working on movies like Hook, Chariots of Fire, and The Scarlet Letter. He is said to have admired the princess from afar and wanted to marry her before his father invited her on a fancy trip to France. Princess Diana and Dodi's bond strengthened in the weeks before they died. It's over now. When Diana returned to London, she broke off her engagement to Hasnat Khan, whom she had called Mr. Wonderful, as he later told the police. Khan did not respect the Egyptian businessman and told the princess that her new relationship would hurt her in the long run. Diana had already decided about Dodi, even though it broke her heart that she and Khan didn't get along. Above my head. Not only is Dodi in love with Diana, but he is also engaged with American model Kelly Fisher at the time. He showed the princess he was serious about her by giving her lots of expensive gifts, like flowers that filled her whole room, a Cartier watch, and rare tropical fruits. Dodi's vows of love are well received when Diana finally agrees to start dating him. Before he started dating Diana, Dodi had made a name for himself as a safe playboy by dating famous people like Brooke Shields and Julia Roberts. Talk of a wedding. As the summer of 1997 came to a close, people had different ideas about how close Diana and Dodi were. Vanity Fair said that Dodi would buy the princess a ring, even though the princess had told her close friend, Rosa Mockton, that she would wear the ring on a finger on her right hand and that Diana was trying to make Khan jealous. On the other hand, Dodi's father was sure that the ring was meant to show the couple's engagement. Good times. Regardless of the truth, Dodi and Diana were happy to spend time together. At the end of July 1997, they chose to cruise to Sardinia. But because they were the hottest couple in the world, the cameras were constantly following them. Diana went to an anti-landmine event in Bosnia in August of that year. Later that month, newsstands showed pictures of her and Dodi kissing on his boat. All set to do what comes next. After a wonderful trip to Sardinia, they were back in France at the end of the month. This time, they decided to go to Paris and stayed at the Hotel Ritz, owned by Dodi's father. The Daily Mirror claimed in 2019 that Dodi went to a jeweler to get Diana the ring she was waiting for while she stayed in their room. Then, on the evening of August 30th, 1997, they chose to go to the fancy Benoit restaurant for dinner. Problems with paparazzi. The couple planned a quiet dinner together, but the reporters said they would ruin their night out. About 30 cameras were following them as they got on the road to Beignets. They turned around and returned to the Ritz, where they ate at the L'Espadon restaurant instead. But as they started eating, Dodi began to worry that some people around them were secret photographers. They had no choice but to go back to their room because of this. Being watched. Diana and Dodi spent the rest of the night in his fancy flat on Rue Arsène Housset after dinner. But they had to deal with another important matter right away. The paparazzi had been following them since they left the Ritz earlier that night, and they were pretty sure that photographers were ready to take action. Ultimately, they came up with what can only be called a grand scheme. A simple plan. Henri Paul, the deputy head of security at the hotel, was part of the plan. Paul was called back to work early to drive Dodi, the princess, and her bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones, to Dodi's apartment. It was his night off. 2 fake cars would leave the hotel's main entrance to trick the cameras. Paul and the others would go through the back door of a hired black Mercedes-Benz. This wall was built in the early hours of August 31st, 1997. Not too long after midnight. Everyone got in the car, and Paul drove fast down the road. But the hordes of reporters found out about the plan and started following the car like crazy. Rees-Jones was sitting in front of Paul. After the fact, an investigation found that the reporters, irritated by Paul outside the hotel, tried to block the car to make Paul slow down, but their efforts failed. Instead, the Mercedes continued going, reaching about 65 miles per hour before something terrible happened. A dirty ending. The limo kept going fast down the road. Paul lost control of his car as he drove into the tunnel under the Pont du Lama only 3 minutes after leaving the hotel. At the time, no reporters nearby could have been blamed for what happened. In the end, Paul's mistake was found. He was driving more than 3 times over the legal limit on booze, and he was also high on prescription drugs. The sad mishap. The car hit the tunnel wall and then moved to the left, hitting one of the roof support beams very hard. After the terrible crash, Paul died right there on the spot. The motorbike riding reporters following the car got to the scene as the black limo's broken down pieces lay in the tunnel. but they didn't do much to help the hurt people. Instead, they took pictures of the wreckage. Finally, though, someone did call the police, and quickly, firemen from the nearby Malar station arrived. Helpers show up. The brave firemen were led by Gourlamon, who was on duty that terrible night. This week, 20 years after meeting the victims, he told the Sun precisely what he and his team had found. According to Gourlamon, the world's most famous couple was in an accident. The car was a mess. We dealt with it like any other road accident. We got right to work to see who needed help and who was still alive, he said. Helping those who are suffering. In an interview with The Sun, Gourmalon said, "When I got to the car, I could see the driver was already dead, and there was nothing that could be done for him." As a seasoned firefighter, he knew what to do. He looked at the situation and helped the hurt person. "For me, this was simply a banal traffic accident, one of many that emergency services have to deal with, and it was the usual causes, speed and a drunk driver," Gourmalon said. Wishes. Things did not get better for Dodi in the car's back seat. He had a heart attack while still inside. Gourmalon had been through many bad things, and Dodi's situation did not look good. Sadly, he did not live and died soon after the accident. The rescuers reported his death time after he was taken out of the car. Luckily, Guardian Rhys Jones was not hurt. He was poorly hurt on his face several times, but could heal. The princess's bodyguard. Even though he was in great danger, Diana was the most crucial thing to Rhys Jones. He kept asking for the princess because he was scared. Gourmalon said, "He kept asking for the princess, saying, 'Where is she? Where is she?' But my team told him to keep calm and not speak. I told him that none of my men spoke English, so it was better for him to stay still and not move. I told him not to worry. We were looking after everyone," he said. This advice might have saved Rhys Jones's life because he would be the only person to survive, even though he was severely hurt. He broke every bone in his face, so doctors had to use family photos to help them figure out how to rebuild his appearance with 150 titanium plates. As head of security for AstraZeneca, he wrote The Bodyguard's Story, Diana, The Crash, and the Sole Survivor in 2000. He then sued Dodi's father, saying that he put intense pressure on him to remember what happened that terrible night. Meghan Markle. While that was going on, Gourmalon took care of Diana. He didn't know who she was at the time, but he called her the unknown blonde woman. Diana was lying on the floor in the back seat of the car. There was no doubt that she was alive because her eyes were open and she was aware. Diana was also said to have been able to move around a little. But even though she was in bad shape, time was running out, and she needed to be taken to the hospital right away. The Princess of Wales. Diana held Gourmalon's hand as he got ready to take her out of the cab. He had no idea he was taking care of the Princess of Wales the whole time. In a later interview with The Sun, he said, "It wasn't until after she was put in the ambulance that one of the paramedics told me it was Princess Diana." That evening, the firefighter also told him what she had said that scared him. These words. The princess may have said the last words she ever spoke to Gourmalon while he was caring for her and ensuring she didn't get hurt any further. She allegedly asked the man who had saved her, "My God, what's happened?" because she was shocked by how badly the car was damaged. Gourmalon did not say in his interview if he ever answered the princess, but he did talk about what happened next with her. Keeping a life alive. Diana was in good hands with Gourmalon and the other first responders who worked so hard to save her and Rhys Jones after what they went through. But they could only do so much because of what was going on. Gourmalon said, "I gave Diana some oxygen, and my team and I stayed by her side as she was taken out of the car. It went quickly because we didn't have to cut any damage." Sadly, she had a heart attack while she was being put on a bed. Stopping the heart. Diana was in the right back passenger seat when the accident happened, and she was said not to have had any significant injuries that could be seen. It wasn't over yet for the princess, though. Around 1 a.m., she had a heart attack, and Gourmalon rushed to help her right away. It looked like it would work at first, He said in the interview, "I massaged her heart, and a few seconds later, she started breathing again. It was a relief, of course, because as a first responder, you want to save lives, and that's what I thought I had done." No signs of a major injury. Even though the crash was pretty bad, Gourmillon was sure Diana would be fine once her heart started beating again. For one thing, he could see she wasn't bleeding. Diana only had a small cut on her right shoulder, so the fireman said, "I could see she had a slight injury to her right shoulder, but other than that, there was nothing significant." After the battle, Gourmillon and his group may have thought they had protected Diana from more harm, but they didn't know the worst was yet to come. It looked like she would make it. Gourmillon told the Sun, "To be honest, I thought she would live." But it wasn't until hours after the terrible crash and Diana's ride to the hospital that he heard the news that shocked him and the whole world. People had high hopes when Diana was put into the rescue car. She looked okay and was ready to go to Petit-Salpêtrière Hospital for the best care. Care in a hospital. When the ambulance arrived at the hospital just after 2 a.m., doctors were in a race against time to try to save Diana's life. They had to try several times before they could say she was dead. Diana, Princess of Wales, died from her injuries. A pulmonary vein was cut, which caused internal bleeding, and a blood vessel near her heart burst. The damage she did was small but noticeable. Gourmillon's night wasn't over, which was a shame. There has been a death, Princess Diana. The princess died early in the morning, which was very sad, on August 31st, 1997. Gourmillon, who worked 2 shifts on the weekend, remembered calling his wife immediately to tell her what happened that night. "My wife was asleep, and I told her about the accident and Princess Diana. I told her that she had passed out, but I had been able to save her life," the lead firefighter said after Diana was taken to the hospital. The mystery of 20 years ago. Princess Diana, who was loved by many and was often called the People's Princess, died on August 31st, 1997. The world was shocked by her death, and people were so sad because nothing like this had ever happened before. It took Gourmillon 20 years after the tragedy, when he was no longer working for the fire department, to discuss it. He remembered what happened that terrible August night in France. The brave firefighter told the Sun, "I can still picture the whole scene. I'll never forget and always think about it this time of year." Princess Diana's last words were, "My God, what has happened?" She died in the hospital a few hours after the accident, even though people were trying to save her life, according to Gourmillon's interviews. She was unconscious and unaware right after the accident.
If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon